What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the MME YouTube channel, where we're here to guide, facilitate, and educate you on your holistic wellness journey. My name is Tyler Egan, and I will be your wellness mentor and educator for today's video. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing the role the mind plays in... Now, let's begin by just kind of taking a step back in the evolution of humans for a moment. Homo sapiens, or humans as we know ourselves, have been on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years. But human-like beings have been on Earth for millions of years. There's a phenomenal book called The Story of the Human Body, which explains this way better, if that interests you at all and you want to learn about it. But what I mean by human-like beings, I'm talking about Neanderthals or creatures like, or Homo erectus, right? Similar to humans, but not the same way we know ourselves today. Now, the reason I share this is because there are parts of the human brain that are newer in our development, newer in our evolution. The prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for higher order function, things like decision-making, social behavior, impulse control, reasoning, this part of the brain is the most recent in our development. On the flip side of that, we have the part of the brain called the basal ganglia, which is one of the more, we'll call it historic part of the brain, one of like the foundational pieces of the brain that is responsible for our instinctual survival instincts, our survival instincts, okay? So things like aggression, dominance, and you don't have to be an overly aggressive or an aggressive person or a dominating person in any way. You don't have to have that kind of personality. For those energies to be within you a little bit, it doesn't have to be a lot, but they can still be in there. Things like survival instincts for food, shelter, water, self-preservation, and reproduction. Right, so we have these two parts of the brain. We have one of the most historic parts, and one of the parts of the brain that's been around the longest, the basal ganglia, that's responsible for our instinctual, animalistic part, primitive part of the brain. And then we have the prefrontal cortex, which is the most recent development to the brain. Now, this is important to understand because this all comes down to stories. When we're talking about using the mind as a tool for healing trauma, this all comes down to stories. The stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. I want you to imagine for a moment, just play with me here for a moment. I want you to imagine that every time you go to work, you have a conversation with your spouse, your loved ones, your siblings, your children, whoever it is, every time you have a conversation with one of these people and you share some of your experiences, you're telling a story. You're writing a book about your life and what's happening in it. Or better yet, maybe if you're into films more and TV and whatnot, maybe you're filming your life and you're writing the script for the next episode. And every time you share one of these experiences and the way you speak about it, not just the words you use, but the energy behind the statements, the emotions behind the statements, is telling your story. Just to give you an example real fast, like let's just think about this. Like, I can't go to the gym versus I don't want to go to the gym. Those two statements, while both could be perceived as negative, feel so much different when you say both of those things. I can't go to the gym. That feels like I am incapable. I'm hopeless, despair in a way. But I don't want to go to the gym. There's a feeling of desire. Like, I at least know I don't want to go to the gym. I'd rather watch Netflix, right? And those two statements, while very simple, could be a part of your story. I can't versus I don't want to. Now, the reason this is all important to understand is because when we talk about using the mind to heal trauma, there's a few different avenues we can explore. The avenue of telling ourselves new stories. So again, the I can't versus I don't want to, versus I want to, versus I am. Like those four things. I can't go to the gym. I don't want to go to the gym. I want to go to the gym. I am going to the gym, right? I can't. I don't want to. I want to. I am. Right? Like those four examples right there are telling four completely different stories. So we can start there and start telling ourselves a different story. Instead of being a victim to the traumatic experience, over time you can begin to rework that story. Instead of this bad thing being that person's fault, it could be a blessing in disguise. Or maybe it starts with listening to that story. Because the reason I mention these two different parts of the brain is because that story of the child within you, the traumatic experience within you, stems from a need that wasn't met. And we can use our prefrontal cortex, the higher order function part of the brain, the newer part of the brain, to reason with that irrational child, let's just call it, inside of us, to be like, no, you don't need to feel that. There's no need to be ashamed. It is what it is. And now we're just pushing that story back down. So maybe it starts with listening to the story and holding that space and feeling the depth of it. Maybe it starts with beginning to rework your story. Tell yourself a different story, right? Is the energy behind your story? Like, what is your story, first things first? What is your story? I used to have this story of a shame story, I'll call it, of I'm a loser. And that story was the root, right? And there was all these branches to it, all these different sub-stories. It's like I'm a loser was the big story. It was the headline. And then there was the subcategory of I will never be good enough. There's a subcategory of I'm a failure. So there's the big one, and there's all these mini ones. And Abraham Hicks is saying that if you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. So maybe your story can start with I am a loser, right? That's the first part. That's the story I was always telling myself. And it was I'm not a loser, or I don't want to be a loser. I want to be a winner. And you start to snowball that into the statement that I'm a winner, or whatever word that you would want to use that aligns and feels right to you. Because for me, in the beginning, when I recognized the story that I'm a loser, I didn't have the space within me to be able to go from I'm a loser to I'm a winner overnight. I had to start by like slowly dissecting that story and breaking it up into smaller increments. Although trust me, I tried to go overnight and it was an epic failure. It wasn't a failure, it was a great learning experience. But I had to go from I'm a loser to I don't want to be a loser anymore to I am not a loser to I can do this. You know, like I just slowly started to compound that from I can't to maybe I don't want to I am. So you can rework your story. That's one way we can use the mind as a tool to heal trauma. The other way is beliefs. We have these beliefs, y'all. We did a whole video on values, beliefs, what is it? Identity, values, and beliefs. And these identities, values, and beliefs drive who we are. Now, the reason this is important is because this is our human ego. This is our egoic mind, is these identities, values, and beliefs. And when those are threatened, because in today's world, we don't have the same threats as we used to. We don't have to worry about food in the same way. We don't have to worry about shelter in the same way. Many of our on the surface needs are met, right? So what becomes under threat, and when the basal ganglia fires up and our survival instincts kick in, is when our ego is being threatened. Now, the reason the ego becomes threatened is because we have an attachment to it. So this can take the form of an identification you have. It can take the form of a value system you carry or a belief system. Beliefs are one of the roots of human behavior, why we do what we do. So the other way we can use the mind as a tool is start to cultivate new beliefs. Like if you have a belief that as you get older, your body is you're doomed for unhealthiness. I had a belief that joint pain, back pain specifically, was hereditary, and that I was destined to have debilitating and agonizing back pain like many of the members of my mother's side of the family have. Once I started to shatter that belief, the whole world opened up for me. Like my back pain actually healed itself. Now, there was work I had to do in the process of proving that belief wrong, but beliefs are another avenue that we can do this. So it's like when we're telling ourselves these stories, what's the energy and what's the emotion, what's the belief underneath of it? Are you at a stage of, do I need to work the story, rework the story, tell a new story? Am I at a stage where there's a belief that's blocking me, right? Like you want to go to the gym, right? You're telling yourself that story. You're past the I can't, you're past the I don't want to. You're at the I want to go to the gym, but you can't actually get yourself there because maybe there's a belief that you'll never be healthy. Your family members have all had diabetes, cancer runs in your family, so there's a belief there, although you're consciously saying in the prefrontal cortex and that the more recent part of the brain, you're saying like, I can do this, I want this, but you have a belief deeper within you that's ingrained neurologically into the fabric of who you are that is blocking you from actually getting your rear end to the gym. So we work the belief now, and you, again, break it down to bite-sized chunks, right? If you can't just release the belief because it's been so, you feel that mental attachment to it, go to the gym for 5 minutes. Yeah, you're probably gonna look silly, I'm not gonna lie. The person at the front desk is gonna notice you've only been there for 5 minutes, you walk on the treadmill and left, but that's cool because you're not worried about their opinion. Maybe you are, maybe you're noticing a fear of judgment. We did a whole video on that. If you wanna check that out, there's a link down below. Now you're noticing a fear judgment. That's a topic for a different day. But we're working the belief. So that 5 minutes today is going to turn to 30 minutes in a month. And bam, that belief will no longer be neurologically wired in the same way because you are interrupting that feedback loop. The feedback loop of, I want to go to the gym, but my family has cancer, has diabetes, which means I want to go to the gym to be healthy, right? But my whole family is sick, and that's basically my genetics. So I want to go to the gym, but my whole family's sick. I want to go to the gym, you know, and you start interrupting that. But just going to the gym 5 minutes. You do 15 push-ups a day. One of the things I more recently implemented is I wanted to start doing an inversion practice before I go to bed at night because it really relaxes my nervous system. So I put a reminder on my phone every day to do it for a minute. Literally a minute out of my day. And what I usually do is I usually watch it while I'm watching, or sorry, I watch it. I usually do it while I'm watching the TV show I'm watching. Right now I'm watching The Flash, really into superheroes right now. So, so for a minute at night, I do an inversion practice while I'm watching The Flash. Now it's a little weird because I'm upside down. It's cool, it's only a minute. I can use the prefrontal cortex, that reasoning, to help me remove beliefs. Now, all this to say, there is a role that the body plays in healing trauma because our body is what's storing these traumas. Now, I mentioned how maybe you need to start by just listening to your story and feeling the depth of that sorrow, that really negative emotion that's within you. My thing was always sadness. Maybe it's like guilt or shame for you. So maybe it starts with listening to that story. And that's where the listening to the body comes into play. And we're gonna talk about that in another video where we're gonna just dive into the role the body plays in all of this. But emotions and energies have a physiological component where you're gonna feel things in the body. Muscles are gonna tense up. And there's also a mental or neurological component, right? There's the chemical rush that ensues when we feel anger, when our fight or flight response kicks in, and where our thoughts start to kick in and tell all of these stories. So maybe it starts with feeling the depth of that. We're gonna talk about that in the video when we discuss the role the body plays. Maybe where you're at, you have to start reworking your story. Maybe you felt your pain. You felt the wounds in your heart, and you feel significantly lighter. And now you're at the space where it's time to rework that story. So it's no longer, I can't go to the gym. You know that you want to go to the gym. Your beliefs aren't stopping you anymore. You're ready to start going. You're ready to take decisive action. I'm gonna start tomorrow, and you speak that fucking shit into existence. Tomorrow, I am starting by going to the gym for 5 minutes, and you speak that with so much conviction and declaration. That is what's happening, it's done, that you know, right? So maybe you're at the place where you're working your story. And when you're doing that work of working your story, you're gonna come up against those specific beliefs. What are they? Where do they come from? Whose voice do you hear in your head when you are stuck in that pattern of, I wanna get healthy, but my family has always had cancer or diabetes? Who's telling you that? Who's telling you that? I can think of like 3 people off the top of my head who are always telling me that back pain runs in my family. And I told them to go themselves. Not literally, but like mentally, when I was reworking my story, I had like these visions of like, people that were like my inner haters. I would like tell them to go fuck themselves because I'm not gonna be limited by that old story, that old belief. So when you start reworking your stories, you're gonna come up against these beliefs. And then when you speak this shit into existence and you're reworking these stories, what's the energy behind what you're talking about? That's gonna truly tell you where your beliefs lie. If you start to be like, I am healthy and vibrant, and you try to go from I am sick and ready to die to I'm healthy and vibrant, and you say that statement and it doesn't feel right, that's what you truly believe. If it doesn't feel right, then you don't believe in that yet. Right? When I went from I'm a loser to I'm a winner, that concept, because it wasn't specifically that, the I winner type of statements didn't feel right to me because I didn't believe it was possible for me. There was so much baggage in between that I had to rework the stories, I had to get the beliefs out of the way. I had to feel the depth of my emotions. Again, the body part, we're gonna get to that in another video. Once I got that all out of the way, now it's like, I am healthy and vibrant, y'all. I am unfucking stoppable, and I know that in my heart. I can speak these statements with so much fucking conviction. So meet yourself where you're at. Rework your stories, feel the depth. Again, later video. As you're reworking your stories, you're gonna notice beliefs. Begin to dissolve those, whether it takes some physical action or listening to it. Or through reworking your stories, you're gonna cultivate new beliefs, new value systems, a new identity for yourself. All right, y'all, I'm gonna wrap it up there. That's the role the mind plays in healing trauma. And I hope this video helps you dissolve old beliefs and shatter your mental limitations, because you are worthy and you do deserve the vibrant health of your dreams. If y'all took anything from this video, if you could please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, we'd really appreciate that. And that's it. Namaste, y'all.